ask you. Whereas like, when you hand out these other reports with the insurance, I mean, that's starting to become more familiar with me, to me. That's only because that's a big nut that we've gotta get our arms around. I don't know, I just kinda think we gotta be careful about getting too low in our fund balance, and if we're watching it more closely, we won't. And if we have a plan to build it up, we'll get there. Otherwise, it just ends up being whatever's on the bottom of the line after we add in and out. I mean, I'm open to your feedback from both of you. I
have a question.
Sure. Oh, you're probably asking me now. I got a little
But you should
enthusiastic.
listen. I wondered where you're going with this is where I'm thinking. With the exception of what you heard in your executive session tonight, which is a special thing, the last time was a land use dispute in the northern part of town, and that was about 5 years ago, just before I came in office, 4 years ago. We don't take things out of our fund balance. We don't draw from that without, huge appropriations and, like, money goes in, but we don't take out of there, do we? Unless we're,
Actually,
or is money coming in and out of there?
The town-
Maybe.
the town did, prior to when I came aboard, have a history of doing
Tapping into
appropriations
it.
every year.
That's
Like
why we're here now.
if the town increased the fund balance during the year of $500,000, there were $500,000 worth of, special
Right.
appropriations
Right.
that came from fund balance. That's part of the reason why in the budget we implemented a contingency line item. And this way, if there were things that happened, we had a
You could tap
resource.
into the
to-
contingency instead of the fund balance.
Exactly, so.
Right, but here's
modern
why,
history.
so I'm thinking of a couple of reasons why I would like this to just be a constant reminder for us of what that balance is, because we as a board should seek opportunities to maybe make suggestions to fund that a little bit, and I'll give you a specific example. In the capital plan that was approved last year during the budget season, there was a $60,000 line item for the roof of the East Lyme Police Department, which it looks like was never used, right?
Yeah.
That's-
Not
well, let's
yet.
do
We're still
something.
in the
Right.
year.
So here's my question. If that safety complex is to be approved by the town, we're not going to use that 60 grand. Rather than keep that in the capital non-recurring account or whatever fund it's in, I would suggest that's not fair game. Let's take that 60 grand and make an appropriation and put it back into the fund balance right away so that it's not used for another purpose.
Okay, that's good.
How was that funded though?
That's what I'm trying to.
Was that
looking.
LoSiP or was that?
Position. So was that in
I thought,
townwide?
obviously, I don't wanna put $60,000 on a roof that, first of all, isn't.
No.
But if we gotta be there in a couple of years.
But that's
then
just
we're
an
gonna-
example.
No,
But this is an
but-
example, and this is something
but
that
that
we as a
money-
board
right.
should be thinking about. If this is a goal that we have to increase the fund balance because we're gonna get better bond ratings,
It's just a
better
good thing to do.
interest
If it's
rates,
actual money,
we should be helping you look for ways to build that up.
if it's actual money, that is the money that's left over at the end. That is that $500,000 we ended up with last year. as an example.
But it's not, it's in a separate fund, the 60, it
I'm
says
not
it's coming from the,
sure it was in the budget that I don't think we've already appropriated the money. I think it may
Oh,
have money that
okay.
eventually.
I found it.
Here we
Okay,
are.
so,
But I might be
Capital and
wrong. Might be
non-recurring
LoSiP.
so
fund.
the East Lyme roof, that was, for the police department, that was a LoSiP project. So that's not part of fund balance, and that's something that would not be eligible to go into fund balance. We were gonna use funds from the LoSiP grant program.
It's an example, though, is what you're getting at.
No, right. We have things in our budget that we don't end up.
Right, I just think it's
hiring
important,
someone or something like that.
I just think it's important to keep our fund balance and the percent of our budget
Absolutely.
closer to us to look at, and I think my opinion is we need to be mindful and create some kind of a goal to increase the fund balance, and right now,
And-
I don't see us doing that.
yeah, no, correct me if I'm wrong, that was a big point that the auditors made
Yep.
during their
And I don't-
presentation.
We're not taking action on
So
that.
we built a budget
Right.
this year, we traditionally put money from the fund balance in there to lessen the weight of the taxes. We keep that as a zero and just try to put money in instead of.
Well, we gotta see where we end up.
balancing. Right,
I mean-
but that will be the goal, is to put a zero there instead. I think this year it's $600,000, isn't it?
675.
$675 in our budget this year. we're borrowing.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't,
Right.
I
So,
don't,
agreed, let's build it. But at the cost of a mill rate.
well, I mean, like I said, we gotta wait till we're there, to get a pulse of what's going on in the town, the state, there's too many variables right now to do that, but I just think it needs to be an active consideration of the board, and right now I don't see us doing that.
Although, so just a little, maybe a reminder here, item number 12 on our action item list is, we've spoken about this before, and we've put the unassigned fund balance report on our action list, and to review it quarterly. And I know I asked about it previously, and Anna has said that at one of these times, perhaps our auditor will come in
Yeah,
and chat with us about it. So,
Well, we don't need that.
yeah.
If it doesn't change. we
If it
don't
doesn't
need-
change, but if you're asking questions about how to grow it, best ways to grow it, things like that, that's a topic that could be covered there. But I mean, it's something, what I'm saying is, that we have visited the issue of
Right,
the
but
unassigned fund balance.
I haven't seen one in a while,
Right, okay.
so I'm just bringing that to
Right,
the
right,
Okay.
surface again.
that's fine.
Thank you, Ann.
So,
Oh, yeah, health insurance.
does anyone have any other issues they'd like to discuss with the?
do you have any issues you wanna discuss?
I will point out, that we did receive our first installment of the ECS funds, as scheduled at the end of October. And
Was that short, Anna? Because I see we got 1.6 million in, and I seem to recall you saying that we typically get about 3 payments of $2 million each, and I think we budgeted for 5.8 in the ECS this year.
We did.
So 1.6 times 3,
no.
4.2, are we gonna be short?
No, because, one of the payments is a larger amount. So we get, I just wanna see what my end of the year,
It's on your revenue sheet.
yeah. So we're gonna receive, we're scheduled to receive an additional $597,000 from what we've budgeted. We're on target to receive the amount that, the state said we would receive.
5.8.
It's gonna be a little bit more than that. And then we did that special appropriation, but we agreed I wouldn't move any of the funds until such time that, we confirmed we were gonna start receiving the
Right.
funds,
Right.
so.
You're gonna go over health insurance a little bit here?
So, the health insurance, there was, I put some information in your, green folders. Okay, here, that's a copy for you. And as you know, this year we took a large increase in our premiums, 28.1%. And what the expectation was is that by this time of the year, we would start to see, our cash position, improving to get us through to the end of the fiscal year and at least be in a break-even position. However, our claims in the first 5 months of the fiscal year have increased by 28.56%, dollar-wise over what we paid out in the same period of time last fiscal year. I believe our claims were $3.4 million at the end of November. They're over $4 million. In that group, at the end of November, we have 13 large claims, of which 4 of them are over the individual stop-loss point of $125,000. So, any more dollars that come in on those particular claims, we will not be responsible for. So I've done like an estimated operating results for you of the health insurance fund. So I began with our cash balance at the end of June 30th. I've added to that the claims that we suppressed. that we, made the arrangements with Aetna that we would, pay them after July 1st, which is why we took the larger renewal on the plan. And then the projected renewal cost, that's the revenues that we'll be putting into the plan this fiscal year, which is a combination of Board of Ed budget, town budget, water and sewer budget, and library budget funds, as well as the employee premium shares. Then estimated claims December through June, and the $6.2 million is based on assuming that our claims from this period of time continue to increase at the 28.56% like they did during the first 5 months of the year. We've paid out $342,000 in administrative fees that we pay for the plan, and we have an additional $685,000 that we would need to pay out in fees through June of this year. So right now I'm estimating that we're going to be short $1.6 million in cash for this fund. If you were to allocate that out between what the town government is responsible for and what the Board of Ed is responsible for, the town share is about $437,000, and the remaining, just under $1.2 million would be board responsibility. The town has 113 enrollees in the plan, and the board has 282 plus 25 retayees.
So wait, you said the town was 1.2, or the Board of Ed's 1.2 and
Board
the
of
town?
Ed's.
Yeah, just a little under
Okay.
1.2, 1,188,000, if you will. So when I looked at the number of employees that we on the town side have in our plan, the water department, the water operations portion would be a little over 29,000. Sewer operations a little over 21,000. The library portion is $34,800, and then the remaining portion of that 437 is 352, a little over 352,000. We've met with the superintendent and finance director on the board side, and we've gone over where we stand with the plan, and we've discussed going at this point in the year and putting budget freezes on to work at coming up with what the town's side and the board doing the same. However, I think it's going to be a stretch for the board at this point in time to come up with that much in budget freezes. So we'll be looking at this constantly, but just wanted to report this to you.
Is this more being reported, or is insurance going up? Or cost of medical care going up? Do we know?
It's claims.
Right,
It's
but
claims.
do we know if it's more claims?
It's a combination. It's frequency, but it's
Cost.
cost.
Collar value.
Yeah, it's, cost of an MRI is not more than 5 years.
So
It's
you
just
able-
your care is just out of control right now. There's nobody stopping that from happening.
For
Cost
your-
your prescription, sorry.
For your monthly tracking sheet, do you have this broken down? What percentage of this is Board of Ed and which percentage of this is for other areas, for the other?
Oh, you mean this claim sheet?
This is your total claims for the town, for all Board of Ed, town, water and sewer, library, right? This is the total for everything.
Correct.
Is it proportional to what you'd expect it to be? Do we have a higher spike in one area than another?
Every year it's different.
It's always
We've
different,
seen the
yeah.
Board of Ed spike our rates one year and the town spike our rates another year. You see some departments are always low.
So kind of what I'm trying to get a feel for is, are you fairly confident that this burn rate is gonna continue throughout the year? Are you just saying that right now it's the only data you have, so you have to believe it?
I have to say, when I looked at estimating the claims December, through June, I'm assuming the same amount of increase, 28.56%. when I looked at what the actual dollars were last year, December through June, it was, I think it was $4.8 million. And I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if it would just be $4.8 million? Because it would get us a lot closer to that, you know, it would be
Budget.
more in that break-even position. But to think that we've gone 5 months at 4 million and we're gonna go 7 months at 4.8, I think is somewhat unrealistic.
Naive is the word
However-
you're looking at.
So we talked about it today with Board of Ed. People will be burning through their HSAs, so therefore their deductibles are exhausted. Are there more surgeries or things scheduled because they're out of their deductible period? Or do they wait for the state plan, because we are moving to the state plan? We're not gonna have this conversation next year. We're gonna know what the rates are.
But there's more
And it
people
won't-
that are gonna take advantage of the state.
Right,
program
but,
because it's
but
better.
it's a more generous plan, so
So our costs
as a
is gonna
person,
go
do
up
I
anyway.
just wait to go get my full blood makeup or whatever I need? Do I wait for the state plan, which is gonna cost me less money and a better plan?
Mhm.
Do I wait till July 1st or do I do it June 30th? Because I paid up my deductible.
So this projected
Who
shortfall,
knows?
this is a good example of our fund balance, right? If-
Well, that's in the health insurance.
I know, but if we were short here, the money has to come up from somewhere, right?
Money's gonna come from budget freezes, canceling any vehicle acquisitions, anything on board that, is something that can be put off yet another year. We're gonna inform departments that, we're gonna roll everything back 5%, see if we can grab something that way. Unfortunately, because of our tight budgets that we insist on, and then we try to pad up our contingency a little bit to say, yeah, if you're running over, come back. I might need to sweep the contingency out just to cover some of this as well. And if at the end of it all, we need to pad some of the next year based on this, we do that, or we go into fund balance, yes. And the last thing we wanna do is tap fund balance, so we're gonna do everything we can. From the town side, it's $352,000, that's what I just heard from Anna.
Yeah.
We'll go find it. I mean, the library's not gonna be happy. Historic houses aren't gonna be happy. Programming's not gonna be happy over Parks and Rec or the other things that they do that's outside of that enterprise zone. There's gonna be, and then Joe, I don't know if he can take any more cuts. Pray for no snow, and, and pray for healthy employees, that we can trend down a little bit. And so, but we're the hits just keep coming, baby. But we've this isn't our first rodeo with health insurance problems. We're gonna go fix it. I honestly, Jeff Newton's trouble meeting his $1.2 million cut. I don't know where he gets that. I don't know if he cancels sports. I don't know if he goes pay for play starting in spring. We had that discussion, two CEOs, and said, we might be taking right turns in the road here, and do some things very dramatically different, starting now, not July 1st. To just meet this, never mind next year's budget, which is, we've been putting things off. And then and I'm not gonna go there about my building downtown. I'm not going there tonight,
That's the
but
first smile I've seen on your face about that
I'm
building
not going
downtown.
there. Yeah, that's a smile for
Took long enough.
we're, we gotta do something, and you've heard that story. We'll talk about that later. In future meetings, I'll be asking also, by the way, for some special meetings fit into your schedule, because I think that will be whole night discussions, and you have important business you do during your regular meetings, so we're gonna have to dedicate some time, and also give you time so you don't feel crunched and rushed that you have to make a decision in a night. So I wanna be respectful of your process.
Okay, so as far as this insurance is concerned, we think that there's a 1.6 challenge. Right now, we think that 1.2 of it is the Board of Ed, and we're gonna split this proportionally. We're not gonna split it based on claims. It's gonna be, the overage is gonna be based on
number of
I mean, that's what I felt was fair,
Clients.
because I had to come up with a way for water, sewer, and the library to pay for their shares, because their employees are part of our plan.
Okay.
You're gonna be crushed, and you're gonna hear about that. The library's gonna close on Sundays. How's that? And I know, right? Want, need, and desperate times, desperate measures. These are not fun times. They haven't been for a while with health insurance. And our country's got to figure out how to fix this, because this is real families going through this. So it's just times.
Yes.
$75 million budgets.
Okay.
So then,
Quick question, contingency, there's $160,000 in the contingency?
that's wage contingency.
Where's, the
Those are
regular?
regular contingencies.
It's 140,000.
But we haven't touched any yet?
We did one transfer of
One.
$12,600. That was the one we did to building maintenance for the custodian.
Where is that, Anna? What, oh, never mind, I'll find it. It's not important.
What, the contingency
Yeah,
account?
I'll find it later.
It's on page 13. So the town payroll is the one that's 160, and right below it is the other contingency. And we started at 153.2, we transferred 12.6, and we have a balance of 146.03.
Feels safe to pull 50% away from that right away, and just as we start telling departments, don't come looking for any.
How many contingency accounts do we have?
Just those two.
Just those two?
It's one department, Department 120.
So is the name kind of a misnomer, like contingency utilities for, because it's not just for fuel and
No,
oil,
no.
it's just a,
Yeah.
okay. But payroll contingency is for payroll.
Payroll specifically.
So if we don't use that, that would be something that we could target to go,
We'll be using that.
Overtime.
The key is not to need more. Well, remember, we put it aside thinking we have a number that when we're negotiating contracts, we'll come up with that number. Is it gonna be a 2%? Is it gonna be 2.5%? Is it 3%? We're developing the budget, but the union contract isn't renewing until July 1st, and we still have a union contract still hasn't been settled. But we have a number, and we're aiming for that number. And we think we'll get that number, but it goes to arbitration, anything goes. But I'm confident by the end. I can see that it's gonna go in a different direction. I think everybody's on board.
Okay, did you want to talk about your debt schedules next?
Yeah, I'll just explain to you what the pages are, so that when you look at them, you have an understanding of what you're looking at. So on page 1, we start with, for both bonds and notes, what the market rate was for them for a credit of our size back at the end of November. And then for the different years that we're showing that we're issuing debt for purposes of this analysis, it shows how many basis points we added to that base rate of 3.5%. So when water and sewer were here, with that drinking water program appropriation, the 2% is a good rate at this time. So then page 2 shows total existing debt service, and it starts with the 17-18 fiscal year and goes out to the 38-39 year. The reason that we start with the 17-18 year is because that was the first year that we started phasing in debt for the school projects, and since we're trying to focus on the school and the proposed public safety facility, we show that information. So page 3 shows our existing debt, and then it has a column for various bonds that we're phasing in to our debt service. So if you go to pages 8 and 9, it explains, like, for example, we show we're going to bond, it shows bonding $3.8 million in 2020, and it shows what that $3.8 million consists of, and it's fire truck, town roads, Board of Ed CIP funds, additional town roads, and a fire truck. We included these items in from the CIP just to kind of, put that into the, to the mix.
So you just knew what they were for, it's not shown on here somewhere.
It's on page 8.
Yeah, the schedule is, but not what they're for, is it?
On the bottom, it
Oh,
shows the
sorry, I didn't see
project.
that, yeah, thanks,
Okay.
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 Got
So
it.
then on page 9, you'll see that it shows phasing in 3 million for the proposed public safety facility in 2 years, and then also an additional 800,000 in each of those years for the roads. And then the last column all the way over to the right is what the total estimated debt service would be. So we
So-
have existing, what we're phasing in, and then total estimated debt service.
So how would we be financing the public safety building between now and 2021? If we're not gonna incur debt until then? Let's just
We
say-
get notes. See how it shows?
Oh, short-term notes?
We get short-term notes, yeah.
And so, what's the difference in interest rate on the short term versus the bond?
So
I'm
if you-
assuming it's,
If you look at page 1, the rate for notes is 2%. And then for future years, we've increased that rate by, the basis points as noted there.
so basis points means like if it's 50 basis points, it's 2.50, is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Okay, and so then the next page is a bar chart representing existing debt and estimated debt service. Page 5 represents the school facilities, and as I noted, we have already started bonding for that. We bonded in 2017 when we went to market, $1,595,000, and then we bonded an additional $4,350,000 in August of this year. And then the remaining 3 times that we plan to bond for the schools are in August of this year, $10 million. In August of 2020, $10 million, and then the final $8,055,000 in August of 2021. Total debt service for the schools is estimated to be $49.9 million. So then on the next page is another chart graph showing existing, and then schools is the next layer, and then the final layer is the CIP layer.
Mhm.
The next chart is just showing what existing in schools alone looks like. I've already explained that. The next pages just kind of show what we're bonding in all of the years back to the original worksheets that we looked at.
Would have been interesting to see this histogram with the proposed public safety debt on it.
We didn't have those, no.
No, I said it would be interesting to see that.
I thought we developed those, we haven't shown them yet, because the proposal isn't in front of you yet, but we will show that.
Well, in
No,
order to,
I think
No?
what Lisa was saying is it would have been nice if they were
To
part
see
of the
tonight.
public forum presentation,
Oh.
and we didn't include those.
well, or even for us tonight, because we have existing debt, right, school facilities, CIP, it would have been nice to see the other layer with the proposed debt for the public safety building, because then we'd be in a position.
It's on there.
Where, in this histogram,
Yes, that's part of the green at the top.
estimated CIP debt?
Well, the,
I'm thinking that's the capital improvement plan.
well, it's just the, like, the term that we are using, like it's part of the CIP.
Right, but the CIP we approved has the public safety building moved out to 2021.
But this pro forma debt information is done for discussion purposes to show what rolling out the public services facility would look like at points in time as noted in here. And so we're just saying, we're taking that from the CIP as opposed to listing every project on that. It's just like a summary term that
All
we
right,
use.
why don't I understand what you're saying? Does this histogram include the debt structure of the proposed public safety building?
Yes,
It does.
yes.
Includes roads.
Yeah, I don't care about that.
Well,
I wanna understand the
But there's no more
implication.
surprises coming at you.
Yeah, but
It
see-
includes the ones we put in every year, includes the-
Right, but it would, for me, as a Board of Finance member, it would be valuable to me to see existing debt, school debt, CIP, and this is a big project that we're trying to get the town rallied behind. I wanna understand what the debt service and the implications of that project are, and I can't tell by looking at this, because this includes all the CIP debt.
Not all of it, but just the just the items that I reviewed with you.
Right, okay, but you understand my question, right?
Right.
I would like to see this with another color, saying if we take on the public safety project.
You wanna cut that green in half and put, roads and fire trucks
Or-
and then public safety.
Yeah, or whatever.
So it's,
Because I
it's the
wanna.
same number at the top.
Okay, but I wanna see how much of
Yes,
this
it's-
debt is public safety.
Something I said to you on the phone today is if there's a little yellow chiclet that said it's a $10 million debt spread over 10 years, there's $1 million a year for that.
No, I hear you.
She's saying the same thing I said.
I mean, you can't tell by looking at this, and if you're trying to make an informed decision.
Well,
this is-
well, plus it's a little outdated, right, the chart? I mean, this is showing the CIP starting in 2021, and if you're proposing maybe moving that up to 19.
But that's what we plan to,
That's short term.
that's,
right?
this is showing when we plan to actually
Bond for that,
the
even,
funds.
even though you, well, how are you gonna get the money to pay for the building if that goes
She
through?
said short-term
Short-term
notes. I asked her that,
2%.
yeah.
We get short-term notes, and then, when you get short-term notes, you typically have them mature in a year. So typically, we go to market we're going to market every July. However, with my concerns, like I talked to you before, how, we have large debt service payments due in mid-July, and that's very difficult for us from a cash flow perspective. So we now go to market in August, so that we'll get our debt payments on a schedule to be due in the month of August, which will work a little better for us on a cash flow basis. So we go to market in August, and then when we get notes, they mature the following August. So we're looking at, we look at our debt, we look at, what we have coming off, what we're looking to add, and we plan what we're gonna do notes and bonds for, and how we're gonna structure that to try to keep our debt service and our budget as level as possible.
That makes sense.
And so that's kind of why, even though, we're proposing to start with the project in calendar year 2019, maybe we're not gonna bond until 21, 22, because that's the best way to phase the debt in with with all other factors that we have going on at the same time.
So we chose our financing of the proposed public safety building includes a 30-year term for $6 million, right?
The bonds will be sold for 20 years.
20
All
years.
bonds are
Right.
20 years.
So 20 years, regardless of the amount, whether it's for the schools, or whether it's $38 million or $6 million, we go for 20 years?
Correct.
No, so that doesn't make sense to me. I'm just saying. I always go back to my household. I finance my mortgage for 30 years, but if I'm gonna go out and buy a car, it's a whole lot less money.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna finance it for the same amount, or same term, because I'm gonna carry more finance charges. Yes?
Well, yes, that's, of course.
So, do we have a say in the term of our bonding? Do we have control of that?
Well, when we structure an issue, we could say, for a component of it, like depending on what it is that part of the issue is for, we might say we want the bond, for those to mature in 5 years. But you have to understand, when we're looking at everything, we're looking at what we have, what we're taking on, and our goal is to keep that flat
Level.
line in the budget. So
I do understand
it's
that.
how it all works
But
in.
going with Lisa's point, I mean, we're building the biggest, most expensive, well, not a building, 3 buildings. The
Yeah.
project is $38 million, of course, compounded interest
Right,
rates of
whatever.
49. it's the biggest project. Should we move that to a 30-year bond? You fold the police station into that or not? But at 30 years obviously spreads out the debt, obviously softens the peak, because you're spreading it out longer. And these buildings, especially the one I'm proposing, is a 50-year project. I mean, 50-year life to the building.
You're paying more.
You pay more, but you're spreading it over 30
Right,
years
but
for the people that are going to take advantage of that building. You know.
I mean, I don't know if
I'd
we're
like
gonna
to spread
solve
it
it
to
here.
50
I don't mean
years.
to intend that we are.
No,
I
we
just
shouldn't
think
even
it's,
open it.
but I think it's
There's
worth
one
the
other
discussion.
Oh, there's one other
Definitely
point.
is. It definitely is worth the discussion.
So there's one other
On
point.
another evening.
One of the things that rating
Okay,
agencies look
point
at
taken.
is how quickly you're retiring your debt. So if we go to 30 years, then that adds like a little negative, negative piece to the review.
But I'll stand there in front of that bond rating agency, as we do every year anyway, and say, these are the last 2 big projects in this town, and I'll stay firm on that. There's gonna be enough municipal space to move into. We're not building another town hall. We're not. I mean, this is fine, okay? The schools are fine. The high school's standing, and, listen, if Oswegatchie Hills gets developed, we're gonna need another elementary school, and we might need to even pop something onto the high school, because you're gonna have 1,600 families. Phase 1, phase 2. But he's also trying to negotiate a
I
land
wouldn't be
deal.
saying this is the last meeting. I just don't even say it.
I will say, no, there's plenty of reasons we're gonna need to
Don't
bond.
say
We're
it.
gonna be buying fire trucks, we're gonna be doing roads every year, we're gonna need new roofs on buildings.
That statement will not be your friend.
I'll stand by
I'm
it.
just saying.
What are you gonna build? I mean, we're not gonna build the library over again because we're gonna have municipal
Okay.
room. I mean, but at least for
Just
20
a
years, we
friend
don't
telling
need
you.
to build anything in this town.
Mm-hmm. All right. It's late, I know. I would just
All right.
like this conversation not to die. I don't know.
Yeah.
We bring it up again when we have more time. We're not ready to kill ourselves or each other.
And we're gonna run into overtime in 17 minutes.
But, you have this information, so you can, look at it and do research. And then just the last few pages have to do with, looking at the, on what our debt to, total expenditure ratios are and, what the, debt burden is considered to be.
Can you reissue with us, breaking out the public safety building, like we just discussed? Would you be willing to do that and send it out to us?
I can have that done.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else you'd like to present?
Say no.
Anybody have other questions for our Director of Finance? Okay, hearing none. We'll move on to our action item list. We've talked about it a little bit. We said we're gonna add to it a new kind of sub-bullet to review purchasing policy mid-year or August-ish, along with the existing annual suggestions for the Board of Selectmen. Anything else we want to talk about on that list, which for some reason I can't find?
So, here it is. Would be good if we had years on here. I hate to say that.
When I saw the 19, it felt
Right,
like,
Ann? No, it's true.
when I saw the 19, it felt like the other ones, if they had
Yeah.
years, that would be.
Well, yeah, I mean, so is item 7 late, or, are these next year? It must be next year.
Is it?
I mean,
It's true.
Yeah, we've already done
I don't
that. We're gonna do this for them here.
okay,
This is a review.
so
This
we
is
didn't have
every
a
year.
meeting last month. It was November, we're late. I mean,
Yeah, we're behind.
so I just think it's worthwhile to note where we
Yep.
are not
And this
meeting our
one here is
dates.
the ones that you went through today. These are the meetings that are ongoing
Yeah.
for the Board of Ed, so that one's ongoing. Policies and procedures. So you said you're not gonna create a list for
There's
the
a list
policies
here,
and
right?
procedures list?
It's in there.
Oh, that's in
Anna
there.
did it.
Oh, okay.
So this is good, yes? We're making good progress on
You
this?
just gave it to us. I didn't look at it.
All right, we'll look at it next month.
Okay,
Actually, the policies list is on that list twice. It's numbers 6 and 11, so we can get rid of one of them.
Like we call ourselves.
Yeah, let's put something in the done box.
And they both have the same date, cool.
I would say get rid of 6, but you're the boss.
Okay.
I do have one question on the action item list. Number 2 is the Board of Finance bylaws annual review coming up in January, which will be our next meeting. How do we want to proceed with that? Do we want to all read the bylaws again and come up with some suggestions and then in February make changes? I mean, how's best to do that?
A couple hours ago, I was gonna mention that, that it would be nice if everybody did review them. If everybody have a copy of them?
No, I don't.
You don't have a copy of the bylaws?
I don't know where they are. Can you email
Okay,
them out?
we can send it back out again.
Okay.
And then next meeting, if we wanna talk about them, there's not a critical need to reissue them every year.
Right.
But we wanna review them once a year. And if there's any comments that anybody wants to add, then I think the bylaws say that you've got to propose it at that meeting and then approve it the following meeting. So
Yeah.
maybe that's the kind of things that, we'll talk about next month.
Okay.
We'll have an agenda item on the agenda for bylaw discussion. And then any proposals we'll socialize. And then the following meeting, we can act on them.
So, on the action item, doesn't really have anything to do with this, but I'm gonna throw it on there so we can talk about it quickly. Can you tell us when we can expect for the police station and safety complex to come before this board, that presentation?
Yeah, so we can all plan our midwinter breaks, right? I'm thinking it should be
Do you wanna roll it into a normal scheduled meeting, or do you wanna
No,
call
I
it
think the
special?
special meeting, I was thinking, selectmen would be the second meeting in January. Let me give you dates. 'Cause we were looking at it, because we're also looking at another public meeting. So the date of the 16th, we were thinking about, Board of Selectmen, and we were hoping for a special meeting, anytime after that. I'm gonna assume they're gonna approve, or then again, we can cancel the meeting if they don't. And they'll be more looking at more building stuff.
How about the
You'll be
23rd?
More finance focused. The 23rd is a special meeting. You meet regularly on the 9th, and the 23rd would be a special meeting if at all possible.
January
They'll give you-
23rd,
they'll give you-
special meeting for that.
They'll give you time to schedule more. If you need more time, or otherwise finish up on the 13th of February, which is a regular meeting. But I think having a special meeting gives us a whole night to focus on it.
So are you proposing a combined Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, or separate?
No, I'm proposing that the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen show up at the public forums to hear the detail, and then make notes of the detail, and you can just zoom in on anything. We have 10 layers of information. And it's not, I can't possibly do all the information at these forums, especially with agency, they want 15-minute presentation.
I tried to help you with
So,
that, Mark.
Thank you, by the way, thank you. So we gave a 2-level, we gave a 2-level presentation. There's much more, and we know that when we get to finance, we're gonna go all the way down to 10 levels, specifically on money. And you pointed out what you're looking for already, but especially on money and operating costs, and what that increase would be and all that. We know what selectmen will be looking into different things as well. Public, we want to give more of the general 30,000-foot view picture. This is our problem. This is just saying that there's plenty of information that the task force will give you. I won't be presenting them all. They have all the answers.
Who's on the task force?
The gentleman up there the other evening, so Tom Gardner and Dan Price and Mark Powers. And then
So they're
department
separate
heads.
from the police commission, they're in a
Yes,
task
2 members
force.
of the police commission. Tom Gardner was a member of the police commission. He no longer is. He's just a citizen task force members. And then the department heads. are
So they
included
just
in the department.
convened on 12/4, right?
They came together on 12/4. Police Commission has met a few times on the subject, but they all were working independently, especially Tom Gardner, who is kind of his labor of love and his vocation for the last couple of years. focusing on that and working with a member of the police commission, Joe Perkins, long-term cop, checking out different sites, and checking out all towns. Yeah, so,
Are they gonna look at a $3 million solution?
I'm sorry?
Are they gonna look at a $3 million solution?
Buy half that building and rent the other half out to a McDonald's or something, or Dunkin' Donuts. Gotta go there with the donut thing and the cop. It's an option. It's a viable option. And do they know what you're talking about? Buy the building and just move the police in for now, because they got a problem with that building. Instead of renting space or putting trailers in the parking lot and moving them out because of substandard air quality.
It's the
and
whole
everything
thing
else.
with it's the whole thing with the need versus the want. To me, the need is to move the police out.
Yeah.
The need maybe is to move the buses out of their awkward
Not even
spot.
that. It's really police,
Right,
police.
right.
You know, and then
So the need
and then
is
slowly
a
move into the
short-term-
building, different departments over the years, and maybe even do that without going to interest rates and cash, and end up being a $9 million project because of P&I, but doing it in chunks and doing short-term things rather than big-term things,
Right.
and moving dispatch 1 year.
Well, if there's grants,
It's an option. It's something we all can
maybe
consider.
find grants in the interim.
Well, it seems to me like the short-term need is to move the police in.
Right,
If
right.
that building, if everybody believes that that building is perfect, near perfect, then we can take next year to finish the negotiations with neighboring towns, to leave the,
It's true.
right? And
Yeah,
we
that
can
gives
start
me room
doing
for that.
the studies about whether or
Sure.
not and all the different things that have been discussed at all these public forums. We've now locked in the building, which nobody has anything significantly better than the location. It cuts the budget in half, because we spent $3 million instead of $6 million. And then we just kind of, anyway,
Yeah, we went there. You went there, Bill.
I go there all the time. I've gone there with everybody.
Let's-
I've been
Okay.
beating that drum for a while. Okay. Anything else?
Public discussion.
Public
Yes,
discussion.
Mr. Schultz is still here.
Mike, thanks for being patient. You're way more patient than I am.
Want me to wear my hand?
Yes.
Keep me awake.
At this point,
I'm sorry.
right, yes, please.
Okay, Mike Schultz, Lovers Lane, East Lyme. Interesting conversations this evening regarding the water system. This is maybe a silly thing to say, but about 30 years ago, they used to call me Minnesota Blue Twisted Steel. Just a nickname. But there's a reason that came about. I used to have like copper-colored skin. And come to find out, I didn't have a lot of steel, I had a lot of iron. And there's a condition called hemochromatosis. And so tonight, they're talking about our pipes are all ductile iron. Worst thing you can have for hemochromatosis is iron. Because you're not processing, your body won't remove it, ends up in your heart, your major organs, many people it kills them. But the problem is, the majority of the people don't know that they have it. I'm going to add a little thing. It's called a Celtic disorder. 90% of the people of Scottish, Irish, and Norwegian origin carry one of the genes associated with hemochromatosis. Carry one gene, you're a carrier. You get both genes, you have it. You're afflicted with it. And if you're afflicted with it, if you don't do something about it, that's when it becomes rather deadly. Obviously, in order to get both of these genes, and I think there are a couple others, each parent has to be at least a carrier of it. And a parent can be afflicted, but they can only pass on one of those genes. So if somebody in your family has it, that means both your parents are carriers at a minimum. And I only bring that to your attention because the iron becomes pretty critical. I gave blood every 3 days for several months. And then went to one a week for a couple of years, and now I give every 8 weeks to get it out of the system. And the color went away. I'm pretty white now. But I just wanted to share that with you. It can be pretty serious. So if they're looking at iron in the water, they ought to be looking at it a little closer. Most doctors today, they don't even test for it. And how many kids take iron supplements today? I know when I was a kid, I did. And it was one of the worst things I can do. Secondly, with regards to these, I wish the superintendent of schools